Good morning. This is Mike Macumber with Adams Insurance Service, and we're doing part two of a 7-part series entitled Fleet Safety Training. Today's section, we're going to deal with the subject of distractions, the greatest cause of accidents as you drive a vehicle. What is a distraction? Well, in real simple terms, distraction is anything that takes your mind, your eyes, or your body out of the driving experience. It takes you and focuses you somewhere else. As you're driving down the street, you look at a billboard and there's a funny picture or a funny sentence, and you're looking at that billboard. That's a distraction that's taking your mind and your eyes away from looking down the street. Distractions can be anything: texting, using a cell phone, reading. I remember many years ago, I had to go to Atlanta, and I was on Southwest, and there was no flight directly to Atlanta at that time, so I had to fly into Birmingham, Alabama. And I arrived late in the afternoon, and they had a rental car and started driving to Atlanta. And I had been very bad weather going in, and there were a number of accidents along the road and that freeway I was driving. But what I saw was just something amazing. I passed vehicles. Now remember, there's accidents all around us. And I passed vehicles where drivers were doing all kinds of things. One was talking on their cell phone. One was texting. One lady was actually putting her hair in curlers. One lady was putting makeup on. They were all doing everything else. They were not giving their total attention to driving that vehicle. A distraction is something that takes you away from doing that which is going to control whether you live or die. So therefore, you need to eliminate and lessen the distractions as much as you can. Signs of a distracted driver: you're following someone who's distracted. Well, many times they're driving slower than everybody else, or they're weaving in and out, or they make jerky moves. All this are because their mind is distracted onto something else other than driving. You need to make sure you're not that distracted driver. Distractions are everywhere. The first step in fighting distraction is to be aware of the fact they're there, not only for you, but also for the other drivers. Remember, we said earlier, you are responsible for the other drivers too. That means you have a responsibility to make sure that they don't cause you to have an accident as you drive your vehicle. Distractions are everywhere. What kind of distractions are most likely to lead to an accident? Well, outside distractions. A study was done about 5 years ago. 24% of all accidents caused by distractions were because of outside distractions. The billboard, the pedestrian, all things that you could observe. Another occupant of the vehicle caused 21% of the distractions. You're talking, you're paying attention, and you are looking at each other as you talk. Reaching for an object, getting that cup of coffee, taking that sandwich and taking another bite, reaching to adjust the radio is 28% of distractions. And on and on and on we could go. Texting: it is illegal to text and drive, period. There are visual distractions, there are physical distractions, and there are mental distractions. The visual are the things you see while you're driving. They can be in your vehicle or outside your vehicle. If you're adjusting the radio, you're trying not looking down the road. Your eyes are supposed to be on the road at all times. So therefore, whenever you turn them anywhere else, you're turning them away from that thing that you're supposed to be doing. Physical distractions could be the pain you feel in your back that makes you do this and your eyes close, or it could be something you're touching and doing. All that is something that is a distraction. And the mental, that's the daydreaming. That's the thinking of where you're going and what you're going to say, or thinking of what just happened at home, or thinking about this or that. Your mind is not on driving. If your mind's not on driving, you're distracted. We talked earlier about the fact you ever drive down the road and all of a sudden you notice a landmark, but you don't remember passing 2 other landmarks that were just 100 feet down the road before that you'd already passed. That's what we call inattentive blindness. That's daydreaming. That's your mind wandering, or you're not in total control of your mental faculties as you're driving. That's a distraction. And that happens to all of us. I hate to tell you this, but the older you get, the more often it happens. So you need to be careful. The optimum age for mental acuity for a driver runs somewhere from 20 to 45, maybe up to 50. That doesn't mean you lose it and don't have it on either end. It just means that's the optimum. So if you're older than 45, you ought to be making sure that your mental acuity is strong, active. Use your mind, actively use it. And if you are in that range and you're not thinking clearly, you got a problem you need to work on. Distracted driving strategies. You need to stay focused on driving. If I'm behind the wheel, I'm holding my hands on the wheel and I'm driving. I may listen to the radio, but I'm watching the road. My eyes are focusing on the distance and the mirrors. My mind is focused on what I am seeing, and my heart and body is running in that direction. I am attentive to what is supposed to be taking place. Secondly, recognize the signs of a distracted driver. We've already talked about that. And thirdly, don't ignore a distracted driver. That driver could be distracted and come into you. And I'll tell you, you're riding behind a vehicle, it's a distracted driver. You want to make sure you have as much distance between your vehicle and that one as possible. They may be distracted and all of a sudden look up and see something that causes them to react and slam on their brakes. If you're too close, you may slam into their rear end. And whose fault is it? We could argue they were distracted, but the reality of the matter is it'll be yours. Remember to commit to not driving while distracted. Remember to watch what's going on around you and keep yourself focused. And remember to respond properly to distracted drivers. Distracted driving is not an acceptable behavior, but it's a behavior that impacts all of us on a regular basis. You need to be asking yourself, how often are you distracted while driving? How often do you find yourself wavering from doing the task at hand? We've all known people who are very easily distracted. I've got a grandson, he's 9 years old. To keep him focused on one task for 30 minutes is the most difficult job you've ever had in your life. He is seeing everything around him and he wants to go for that instead of what he's supposed to be doing. And you have to stay with him and watch him and take care of him. Well, I hate to say this, some of you drivers are like that. And some of you employers have drivers that are like that. They're so busy in so many areas, their distractions are abounding. They're in your vehicle, driving that vehicle, their cell phone is there, and they're using it, and they're talking to others, planning tonight's meal, planning to next weekend's party, planning something else. Or they're thinking about it in their mind and getting ready for it. Or they're thinking about what they had last night, and it's an issue that they're discussing. Distractions are the key cause of accidents in America. Drive defensively. To drive defensively, you have to be a driver who is in control of both their emotions and their distractions. So before you leave, you preset the temperature in the vehicle the way you want it. You set the radio to the station you want to listen to. You make sure your seat is properly aligned. You double check the mirrors to make sure that they're properly aligned and you can see. And you take a deep breath, gulp, take a drink of your coffee, and head out the lot. Because now everything you do is tied to driving that vehicle. Nothing else matters. You're getting from point A to point B, and you're keeping your attention on the vehicle that's in front of you. Make sure that it's going where you want it to go. Driving a vehicle and to be a good driver You must drive with an attitude expecting the unexpected. In other words, when I'm driving down the road and I know I'm going into a city, I'm going into that city knowing that when I come to intersections and I'm driving in a public area, all kinds of things could be there to cause me trouble and to be distractions for me. Defensive driving means watching out for the other guy and being focused on driving. As I'm driving, I may play the what if game. What if that car coming towards me crosses the center line? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What if those kids playing on the right decide to run into the road? What am I going to do? What's my speed limit? Where am I at in the road? Am I in a lane I should be in? I'm constantly analyzing the drive that's taking place, which is keeping me from being distracted on something else. You come up to an intersection, you never know if the car next to you is going to turn right in front of you or go straight. So I don't hit the accelerator until I see what happens. The light's red, it turns green, I count 1001, and then I start to go forward. Why am I doing that? Because I want to make sure that no one crosses that intersection. I want to make sure that no one runs their red light and has an accident with me. Avoid being distracted and distracting others. Watch what you're doing. Decide appropriate actions and take them all the time. You want to be seen and be seen. You want your windshield clean, you want your lights working, and you want your horn to work. And if you're about to do something that another person may not see you, you just tap on your horn and let them know you're there. You see, your goal is to not be a distraction and to not be done in by distractions. And distractions can be anything. You want to be seen visually, you want to be scanning. Your eyes should be moving all the time, in front, to the side, behind, mirrors, etc., so that you are constantly looking where problems can come from. That again means you can't be distracted. You can't be focused on something that's not doing driving. You need to train yourself. It's a process. It's not something you come born with. There's a company that has a decision driving safety program, and they talk about commentary drives. I think commentary drives are great to do for 5 or 10 minutes while you're driving, but they'll become very much a pain. And basically what you do as a commentary driver, as you're driving your vehicle and you're by yourself, you verbally say out loud what you're seeing. I'm driving 45 miles an hour. I'm in the left lane, away from the curb lane. There is a car in front of me. It's about 35 feet in front of me. There's cars coming the other direction. Everyone seems to be going. The road is dry. The sun is shining. The vehicle in front of me looks like he's moving into the right turn lane now. Looks like he's going to turn right. You see, what you're doing is you're verbally saying what you see and what's taking place. Number one, it'll drive those points home. Number two, you'll find it is very difficult to keep doing. And number three, you'll find it helps you learn to become more alert while you drive. Commentary drive, I truly encourage you to try it. You'll find it interesting. And you'll find the more often you do it, the better you get at it. And you'll find the better you get at it, the more focused you are on driving and less focused you are on distractions. Distractions are something you need to be careful of. So let's talk about defensive driving. And what is defensive driving? And what are the parts of it? First of all, I've said this 5 times already. Driving defensively is driving focused. Focused on what you're doing, focused on the vehicle, focused on the traffic around you, and focused on driving your vehicle in a manner that's safe. Focused on your speed, focused on the placement of your vehicle where it is, focused on making sure your windshield stays clear if it's raining, focused on the condition of the roads, looking for potholes, looking for things that could cause you to have an accident. Focused on driving. That is the most important thing you can do, and that's how you stay away from distractions. Secondly, stay alert. You know, I don't know about you, but when I take long drives on trips, on those freeways, it gets to the point you kind of get a little bit focused more on the car instead of outside the car. And you start looking around, you get a little bit distracted in that process. You got to be careful. The longer the drive, the more you need to be focused on what's going on around you, and what's going on in the vehicle. Thirdly, watch out for that other guy. He's your problem. That's always the case. Even if you're not driving properly, the other guy is always your problem, because if he does something you don't expect and you're not prepared for it, you're going to have an accident. If you've been driving for any length of time, I dare say most of us have had at least one auto accident. Have you ever sat back down and analyzed your accident and asked yourself, could it have been prevented? And if so, make a list of the things you could have done differently that would make the accident not occurring. I've done studies in many, many companies, and actually have worked with many safety directors to do these studies. And we've analyzed the factual situations in all the company's auto accidents. And without exception, 90 to 95% of those accidents could have been avoided if our driver had done one or two things differently. It's that true. So therefore, we always talk about accidents not being my fault or being my fault. I don't care whether it's your fault or not. If it's not your fault, but your car is damaged and you have to pay money to get it fixed, you still suffer the consequences and you get hurt. So fault or not fault is not the issue. It's preventability. As you see accidents, think about, could they have been prevented? And as you're driving, what can you do to prevent yourself from having an accident? Well, there's 10 secrets. You might see this at the test at the end of the class. 10 secrets for safe driving. Number one, think safety first. I don't care if you've been driving 1 year or 25 years. Think safety first. Number two, be aware of the surroundings around you. In other words, pay attention. It drives me crazy to ride with some people I know who all they want to do is talk and look and do everything. They look like they're not watching what they're doing and driving. They're doing everything else. That focus is always hard. I refuse to be the one driving and riding with my boys when they learn to be drivers. I did it for two reasons. Number one, I knew my patience would not be there. Number two, I have a wife who, number one, is the most cautious driver I know. And she's also a very patient driver. So my boys were assigned, they had to ride with their mother, and they could not drive by themselves till she signed off on their driving capabilities. And my wife is a tough instructor. They would come and complain to me, Dad, you've got to take over, please. I nope. Both my boys, they've had accidents and they've had tickets, but I think they're both pretty good drivers overall. And they look back and they actually, one of them actually told me, I'm glad I wasn't with you. I figured we'd have fought all the time. That probably was true. But they also learned the patience of their mother. Now, she's not always a patient driver. She also gets distracted too. Do not depend on other drivers. You can't trust the other guy to do what you think he should do. Always be playing the game, what if? Follow the 3 or 4 second rule. It used to be the 2 second rule. It's now traditionally in all the insurance companies, safety people teach the 3. And if road conditions are not totally perfect, 4 or 5 second rule. That means you want to follow 3 or 4 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. So that vehicle passes a parked car, and as it passes, you count 1001, 1002, 1003, and by then you should then be passing the same car. If you pass it earlier, you're too close to the driver in front of you. If you pass it later, you're more than 3 seconds away. That gives you time to react. If that driver does something foolish or something you don't expect, you have time to react, and most of the time avoid the accident. When the weather's bad, have more distance. Fifthly, keep your speed down. I hate to tell you, the posted speed limit is the maximum speed allowed by law. You can drive slower than that speed. Of course, you don't live in Houston, because everyone understands that that speed is the minimum, and everybody drives 5 miles over or more. At least that's what they think. And they're breaking the law, and you may be one of those individuals. But the reality of the matter is, remember, that's the maximum speed by law. And if conditions are out there not good, you should be driving slower. And if you're in a crowded area with lots of people in the city running around on the side and kids, you ought to be driving slower, because you need to be able to react if something happens unexpectedly. Number 6, have an escape route. Remember we talked earlier about playing the what if game? Well, when you're driving, you want to ask yourself, if this person does this or that or something happens, what can I do to avoid the accident? Prepare for the accident. By doing that, you may not have it. 7, separate the risks. 5 cars in front of you are not all having the same potential danger to you. There's different drivers. Their behaviors are different. The vehicles are in difference in shape. One might be a truck with items on the back that could fall off. Identify the risks that are there. It's not just a group of vehicles. It's 5 vehicles, and they are, as you're analyzing what you're doing. Number 8, cut out distractions. Oh, gee, I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Distractions, things that take your mind off what you're supposed to be doing. Avoid aggressive driving and stay focused. I think I said that at the beginning. You're right. Stay focused. Driving a car safely is driving it in control. Each of you, I'm sure, have cell phones. Each of you, I'm sure, text. You may have a company policy that says you're not allowed to turn your cell phone on in the vehicle, or that you're not allowed to talk on your cell phone in your vehicle. I will tell you, you ought to turn your cell phones off. I drive down the vehicle when I'm driving, I turn my cell phone off. You know why? Because I put it on silence, but you know what it does? When someone's calling me, it lights up and I see the light. And I have this uncontrollable urge to reach down and pick it up. Safest way is to not be distracted by it. Now, I know that is so hard to do because we live and breathe by our cell phones anymore. But again, what are you doing? You're driving a vehicle. What's your goal? To get safely to the other place. And what is that cell phone? A distraction that could cause you harm. The safety organization said if you have to have a cell phone, then have it as hands-free. Now, I hate to tell you this, hands-free cell phone is still a distraction. And it still takes your focus away from driving. Because when you're talking to someone else, you're not only thinking about driving, but you're thinking about the conversation that you're having. So your mind is not focused on driving. So really, you don't want to talk on the cell phone while you're driving. If you've got a call and have to talk to someone, pull over. Make the phone call. Be safe, then go back to driving. Texting, of course, is never allowed, because texting requires you to focus on that phone, hit the keyboards, even if you've got the ability to talk and the text types out. We've all seen that happen. And sometimes the words you say are not the words that are text. And you see that, and what do? You react. You're not focused. You're not focused on driving. Everything is happening, and you're not in control. Overall, distractions are the chief cause of accidents. Reckless and distracted drivers are drivers that can cause you harm. Watch out for them. How about debris on the road? Ever drive down the street and all of a sudden there's part of a tire in the front of you? I've done that many times. Are you ready for it? Or were you talking to the person sitting next to you and the last second you saw it? Or how about the pothole? We do live in Houston. There are potholes. There are areas that can cause us damage. So be watching for that. For rain and hydroplaning, some of the worst accidents I've ever seen are people who were driving vehicles and were not speeding, a hydroplane cross the center line and hit somebody else. You need to recognize, even if you have the best tires in the world, your vehicle's in top mechanical condition, you're driving on vehicles that is lightly wet because of a light mist, it is susceptible, you are susceptible of hydroplaning. When you reach that 35 to 40 miles an hour, that is when the potential increases significantly. So recognize that's going on. How about driving into a puddle you didn't notice? Or it's a lot deeper than you think it would be. Or the car in front of you slams on their brakes. Not because something came in front of them, but just because they were distracted, looked up, thought they saw something, and hit the brake. And at that point, off we go. I was following an individual driving down the street once a little too closely, and I was trying to get to my destination. And that person, there was a police car parked on the side of the road. And as that person was just entering the intersection, she noticed the cop car and it was a yellow light. She slammed on her brakes. I had to literally stand up and slam on mine, and I barely nudged her bumper, but I caused an accident. Number one, I was following too closely for the wet roads. Number two, I wasn't anticipating what she was going to do. And number three, I was distracted because my mind was in a hurry to get to my end point. Distractions kill. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and off we went. Ever seen a pedestrian who at the last second starts to run in front of you or don't see you? They're talking on a cell phone, they walk into the intersection. Well, it happens all the time. People don't watch what they're doing, and they're distracted themselves as they're walking around. Or kids playing and throwing a ball, and the ball goes in the street. What does the kid do? I got to go get the ball. Or the kid throws a frisbee into the street, and the dog's there and says, hey, what do? I got to go get the frisbee. Are you ready for that? Are you ready and prepared for that which is about to take place? Are you controlling the distractions so you're ready for what goes on? When you drive in the city, you're driving in an area that can be most dangerous. An area that can cause harm to you, and you can cause harm to it. So therefore, your focus is critical to that area being under control. So let's go back and kind of review. A distraction is something that either takes your eyes, your body, or your mind away from being focused on driving. Eyes, those are the things you see all around you and in the vehicle. The billboards, the Chick-fil-A, cows that tell you to eat chicken. The billboard that says, well, the pretty girl who's standing there and says, hey, I want to, or all that. Or the young lady walking down the street and she's very attractive and you kind of follow her with your eyes as you drive by. Those are distractions that can kill. Physical, that's what's going on in the vehicle. Reaching for that Coca-Cola, reaching for that cup of coffee, reaching for the sandwich. You got the sandwich next to you. You kind of look a little bit to the side, reach down, grab it, and take a bite. Your eyes were not focused. How far can you travel in 2 seconds while you look away? About 50 feet? What can be in front of you in that 50 feet? Or 75 feet, depending on your speed. Distractions kill. And then your mind. If it wanders, if you're looking somewhere else, if you're not paying attention to what's taking place, you're not ready to drive. So be careful while you drive. Don't be distracted. Stay focused on what you're doing. Be safe. Come back with no accident, no ticket, and come back alive. That was our second choice of our study of fleet safety, distractions. Now, each of you need to see who's in charge of your program, for there is a test that you need to take of 5 questions. Hopefully, I gave you the answers. Thank you. The next one will come. We'll talk again. Goodbye.